Here is a shot of Hallie walking through a hallway. Let's pick a good one with her wedding dress. The videographer's White and Reverie set this up, so I was just kind of shooting behind his shoulder, so I'm not sure what I'm going to have, but let's pick a good one. Okay. We had a really good window light coming in. And let's just pick a good one here. Kind of like that detail quite a bit. No. Kind of like that. I feel like Lori took that one. Lori takes a lot of really good ones. Lori was my second shooter, and she's fantastic, but let's edit one that I took. So I feel like I've used a lot of hers lately. Let's see. It's cute. Oh, I love that one, but I was behind him, so. Make sure we get the best one here. Oh, I like that one. That's probably our winner. That's cute. I like that too, cropped in, but that's kind of cool. And that's better. So either that one or that one from back here. What I like about this one is I can kind of show you it wasn't that one. Yeah, it is a little dark, so that's a good one to show you how I edit. Sometimes when I shoot, I underexpose just barely because it's easier to get back detail from something that's a little bit too dark than something that's blown out. So, okay. This already has my own preset, which is Blue Curvy Warm. I'll go into a little more detail about this. That brings my curves here. The dark's a little bit lighter and the bright's a little bit darker, which makes it slightly more matte. Saturation. Oh, my blue is not working. Should push up my blues in the saturation. In the split toning, it puts in a specific yellowy color to all of my midtones and highlights and stuff. Okay, so that's what that did, that preset. So first thing I usually do is up the contrast to 100 and then pull it down to where I'm comfortable. And I don't even look at the number when I'm doing this, I'm just looking at the picture. Okay, 30. That's usually about where I end up. Okay, if I were to pull up the exposure, it looks good on her, but look through the window. It's blowing out those highlights, and I really like where that was at. I could go back in with a brush and do that. We may end up doing that. But for now, I'm going to use my tone curve. You can click and drag, but I always just eyeball it. So I want to bring up the brightness of her highlights on her skin, and that's right out here. I don't exactly know why I don't just click and drag. I like the idea of being a little more free-flowing with it. I don't know. Pulling that up a little bit. My mouse not working. There we go. And that is going to affect the stuff outside the window a little bit, but not as much. And then I'm going to look at the shadows, where the shadows on her face, the darkest, right about there. And I'm going to pull it down, but see what that does to the contrast. That's a little too much. So I'm going to pull the contrast down. Okay. I'm going to up my saturation by 3-ish. And I haven't even messed with white balance yet, because when you're messing with the brightness and exposures, that's messing with colors. So I obviously have that videographer's hand right there, so I need to fix that. And I may be able to do that just by straightening the photo a little bit. Unfortunately, I am going to lose a little bit of this. What I don't really want to lose, we'll see if I can help it, is this curve right there, the bend in the dress. Her eyes are pretty close to that line, which I don't really care about, but kind of. Okay. If it happens to be on that rule of thirds line, that's always like a plus, I guess. So, okay. Kind of like that. I still have his hand a little bit, so pull that down a tiny bit. And I'm looking in this window over here too as I'm doing it. That really helps. Pull this up a little bit. I need just a little more to get his knuckles out of there. And I have lost that bend in the dress now, which I really don't want to do. It feels like it's cut off now. So I'm going to pull that down closer to her head. And I have lost some of the stuff up here that I wanted to keep, but it happens. She's also off of the rule of thirds a little bit now, but her whole head is in that quadrant, that portion. So it works. Okay, close. I like that better than the original. And then sometimes I go over here and I reset and then undo. So let's just see. Make sure we like it more. I do like it more, but I want to add some of that darkness in this back corner back. So I'm going to use a brush. And we're going to burn, which darkens just what I want. And I'm going to just put it over here, kind of in that corner. And we're going to bring it down. I didn't have to brush that much. I got a little crazy, but just to make sure it's not too hard of a line. Okay. I think that helps a lot. And I might go in here, new brush, and dodge, and brighten some of this stuff out here. And give it a little more of a color. Yep, okay. I'm also going to add a tiny, tiny bit of brightness into her hair. So I've done a new brush. I'm just going to lighten that so I can see it a little better. And I'm also going to up the saturation. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Sometimes right about here I'll go in and see, do I like black and white? I do kind of. My Photoshop black and white preset is very different than Lightroom's, but I think I'm a sucker for color. I love color. I feel like her face is slightly yellow. This whole cabin was gorgeous and cedar on the ceiling, walls, and floor. So it gave off a lot of orange light, and I love orange, but I don't want her to look back and think that her makeup looked yellow because it didn't. So lighten her face. I don't think I want to lighten it, but I might bring it a little bit into the blues. I brought it down 6 into the blues, and I am going to lighten it just a touch. That's good. I feel like it's a tiny bit green, so we're just going to up the magenta. I think that's good. Yep, and we haven't even touched the white balance yet, so now we'll do white balance. A good trick I like to do is I'll go in. We have some natural light and some incandescent lighting happening, so, and I wasn't using flash because I hate flash. So I'm going to go in and do some presets. That really daylight is hitting that, and I kind of liked that. That's at 5600 and +1, so as shot is 50/50 and +4, and that does look better. Let's try back here is just incandescent. That's going to turn her blue. No. But I did kind of like that direction more than I thought I would, so I'm going to pull this down. Man, I do like that better. Usually I like that really yellow look, but I was at 50/50, now I'm at 48/21, so it's not a huge difference. And I like that a lot. I'm going to pull down my blacks a tiny bit. And let's mess with that contrast again and see what we like. The thing is, when you're messing with contrast, I have this real matte look in my presets. And when I bring back in the contrast, it does kind of mess with that, so I do like to be kind of careful. Okay, I'm going to do only 20 contrast. And this, I always just do this at some point. I pull it all the way up, the exposure, and I bring it down. This is just, depends on your aesthetic, what you prefer. Because that is really beautiful, and whenever you lighten something, it's always good for the smoothing the skin, but, you know, I think it's important to capture what was really there and what the mood was, and I feel like it wasn't bright. It was right about there. Okay, so I did up it by 0.15, so I wasn't really expecting to, so that's kind of cool. Okay, I'm going to zoom in and smooth her skin just a tiny bit, because my style of photography is not that overexposed look. A lot of people do like that brighter look, which is gorgeous and looks really good on your skin. But I like kind of a darker look, and it's not the best for the skin always. So I usually do have to touch up skin just a tiny bit. Not a ton. You don't want it to look fake. I've said this before, I say it all the time. I don't want someone looking at my photos and thinking, I love how she photoshopped me. I want someone to look at the photos and just think they look amazing. Okay. And see, that didn't do a 10. I'm going to turn that on and off so you can see it. That's off. And that's on. It's so subtle. I don't like that. I might do a little more on that cheek. But for that, I'm going to use this. When I do this, sometimes I'll squint and just see like what spots are standing out, if there's anything. Maybe they have just like a shadow somewhere. Yeah, perfect. Okay, now whenever you smooth the skin, you do lose some of those highlights and shadows, so I'm going to go back and bring a little bit of them in. I'm going to burn, she really doesn't need any burning on her cheekbones. She's got enough blush on. I'm going to burn right there a little bit. And maybe on her eyes, just a tiny bit. It doesn't need to be negative 0.3 though. That's about right. And then I'm going to go back here and add some highlights. I feel like she needs more of that than the burns. So it's got a little bit of a feather, this brush. I'm just going to bloop, and on her cheeks. And I think maybe a little on her nose. Just things that we lost when we were smoothing out the skin. Maybe a little on her chin. Not that much. Yeah, and I don't want to do it too much. So that's about right. Yeah, okay, now I do want to smooth out her neck a little bit. I think my focus point was probably right about here instead of on her nose. And so her neck and that skin is a little more in focus. So, new brush, and I'm going to do Soften Skin, which is Lightroom's preset, so that's a little bit stronger. Now what I want to make sure I come back and do, I'll probably have to reburn right this little spot and maybe some of this structure. Okay, but we'll see what happens here. And my computer does have a delay when I do this screen recording. I am also going to take out some of the redness. There's a lot of ways to do that. I'm actually just going to desaturate a little bit, which you have to be really careful doing someone's skin. But I think that that's going to work. I'm going to pull a little more yellow into it. Oh yeah, whoa, so much better. I think. I think that matches her face a lot better. I love that. I feel like it's pretty good, but I am going to add some burns. Just a tiny bit. Like right there, there, and right there. Perfect. Okay, so off. All my brushes are off. Now they're on. There's a delay, so let's try that again. Off. This is off, and now I'm going to turn it back on. I think that's pretty good. Pretty good. Especially for a photo, like, her face is not the total focus. There's a lot going on, but I think that is really pretty. Yay. Okay, so this is a normal amount of editing for a photo with a person in it. The other ones I showed were super complicated. This, we're not replacing any backdrops or, you know, double exposure or anything crazy. So that is how I would do it. And then I would export it. I would export it into Photoshop. I'm just going to name it something normal. And it's going to open up for me in Photoshop while I eat a grape. There we go. So in Photoshop, if I need to do anything funky, I will. I do almost everything in Lightroom now. I used to do all of my pictures, I used to give them all this action called Sun Peck, where it just adds a little bit of orange to it, but Hallie's wedding I don't think is going to need any of that because, there it is, because it was very orange, so this is it with my action. Oh, it's so hard to choose, but I think I'm going to leave it without. That is just like a preference, and it's so hard to choose. And I feel like whenever I do it with one wedding photo, I usually try to do it with all of them so that it's consistent, but I think this is good without. I'm going to duplicate that background layer and just see if I like it in black and white. I think I'm going to like it better in color. Yeah, that's really pretty, but I just love the color. Okay, so we didn't really touch it in Photoshop. We didn't really need to. And I think